welcome to part 3, and to finish that up, we'll talk about a full retreat and change of direction. So I retreat fully, and I push off with my rear leg, and I use something on my front leg, on the ball of my front leg, to finish my cross-legged flesh or cross-legged hit. Full retreat, push off the rear leg, and use the ball of the front toe. Watch twice more. Full retreat, nice and low, push off his rear leg, and also accelerate with the ball of the front foot. Once more. Full retreat, nice and low, push off his rear leg, and use the ball of the front foot to hit. As you're pushing off with your rear leg, like the other one, you have to beat the blade. That's actually where a 7 parry can be nice, because there's often a blade in the way. If you try a 4, it's a little easy to read. So, face your target. On guard, ready. Full retreat, nice and low. Push off that rear leg and accelerate with the ball of your front foot and hit. On guard. Full retreat, nice and low. Push off of that rear leg and use the ball of your front foot to hit. On guard. Retreat, nice and low. Push off this rear leg. Use the front ball of your foot, the ball of your front foot. Recover. Retreat, nice and low. Push off rear. Use the ball of the front foot to change direction. And you're beating, of course, as you're doing this. Full retreat. Push off, beat the blade, and finish your attack using your front foot to help accelerate. 3 more. Retreat, nice and low. Push off that rear leg, beat the blade, and push with your front foot to finish the attack. 2 more. Full retreat, push off rear leg, use front foot to finish. Last one, full retreat. Push off rear leg, beat, and cross, and finish. This is a very subtle move, takes a lot of practice, and you get someone who's good at those sort of disappearing arm attacks, and it can be very tricky. But it is a nice change of pace, and anytime you change expectations, you give yourself a certain advantage. Speaking of people like that, we talked last week about absence de faire attacks and defense against them. So let's remember, first thing is, if someone is one of these guys or gals that attacks like this, and you can't find the blade, and they're coming at you slowly, and you try to counterattack and they hit you, don't fall into that trap. If they do it once, that's enough. In fact, if you're at a tournament, you can watch them in the pools and see what habits they have. And if they always do this, where they come at you and the person counterattacks and they finish, you know that's their game. So the first thing is attack them. Don't give them a chance to establish that rhythm. Ready, fence, boom, off you go. Ready, fence, boom, off you go. Over and over and over. That's 1. Second, if they come at you when you are in the defense, we talked about having a set team or a 7 line here. This helps cover the target partly. Slightly odd position. They have to finish somewhere, maybe up high, maybe low. You have to take a feel for that and get a chance. And also remember, you often have more room to retreat than you think you do, even at the end of the strip. So you can retreat, find a parry up here, retreat, find a parry down here, or a tierce, this strong prone 3 position like 6 except turn. So that's another one. The third one is the contretemps, where you have a fake intention and a real intention. They come at you with a bent arm. You throw out a counterattack. They assume they're going to hit you on the attack, which is their game, and that your counterattack will be late, and therefore it will be their point. But your real intention, of course, is to draw their attack by throwing a counterattack, and then make a parry riposte. Obviously, this is the most difficult of the 3. And takes quite a bit of practice and experience, but it's worth working on that, having it in your toolbox. So the first one is if the director says fence and you go at the person and you attack as much as you can. The second is, here she comes, you put out a 7 parry, you retreat, maybe you go back and forth and leave it there. This can be somewhat unnerving. And then try to find the parry up here or up here perhaps, most common. Third is they come at you, you throw out a fake counterattack, but the real intention is to make a parry riposte. That's the hardest one. Here it is from another angle. You throw it, notice my foot is moving, I'm throwing out a fake counterattack, but here's my parry. So these go in opposite directions, fake, reach. Just do that much. Fake, reach, and not fold. Fake, reach. Fake, reach. So this is like a code in a way. The code says, I'm going to make a counterattack, but the reality is not that. It's like sending a false code in World War II. You send misinformation to your opponent. Basically, you lie as much as you can in fencing. So we'll try that a few times. Here she comes, you step back with one foot, you throw it a counterattack, you finish your defense here, and you make a repost. Here she comes, you throw it a counterattack with your half retreat, you make maybe a circle 6 or circle 3 and repost. 2 more. Here she comes, you step back, out comes the fake counterattack, maybe a circle parry and the repost, and once more. Here she comes, fake counterattack with the 1 half retreat, the real defense, and the repost. So now you know. I'm going to do something a little different now. I'm going to talk to you about the strip, and most of you know the strip rules, but I think it's worth reviewing them. And also I have a movie recommendation. So I'm going to pick up my camera and bring it over here to the wall. This is, of course, the strip. It has the center, which is here. Sorry, center's there. 2 meters to the on-guard line, 3 more meters, and then the 2 meters with the warning. You know from experience when you're retreating, you can perceive this 2 meter mark so you know where you are. Same on this side. So that's a total 2 plus 3 plus 2, 2 plus 3 plus 2. It's 14 meters. I have concerns about American students and their ability to work in the metric system. You should know that a meter is a little bit more than a yard. And if you don't know that, you should learn it. It's a yard plus about 3 inches. So it's like a yard and kind of 10%. So that's what we have here. The strip is 14 meters. 1 meter equals a yard plus 3 inches. That's a yard, about 10% more. It's close to 40 inches really. So 14 meters equals 14 yards plus another 10%. Call it 1.4 yards for a total of 14 plus 1.4, 15.4 yards. We'll say close to 16. What I hope you know is that 14 meters again, how many feet are in a yard? There are 3 feet in a yard. If you don't know that, you should, and you ought to be able to convert from our measurements, imperial measurements, to metric. So if there are 14 yards plus in a strip, that means there are 42 feet in a strip because 14 times 3 equals 42. You need another 10% on top of that as we learned. So another 10% is about 4 feet. So a strip is about 46 feet long, between 15 and 16 yards long, 14 meters. If you do not know how to convert from feet and yards to meters or from pounds to kilograms, etc., you need to learn that. It's not that difficult. You can make a few simple estimates, like a kilogram is a little more than 2 pounds, and a kilometer is a little more than half a mile. So let's assume for a moment that this lovely, beautiful carpet is the strip. The width of the strip, the rules say, can be between 1.5 and 2 meters. Almost never is it a full 2 meters. If you're quick on math, you will know that 2 meters equals 2 yards plus another 3 inches on each yard. So it's about 6 feet 6. Sorry, 2 meters is about, 6 feet 6. Most of the time you'll find a strip that's about 1.5 meters. That's about 5 feet, something like this. If you get a sense of that. But what I want to talk about is, as you know, if you are on the fencing strip and you're moving and any part of your foot goes off the strip, the referee can call a halt. You are allowed, if you attack and score while you still have 1 foot on the strip, that's okay. But the ref is supposed to call a halt if you go off that much with your foot. Halt, and then you get back where you were, and then you lose 1 meter. That's usually not a terribly big sacrifice, doesn't make a whole lot of difference. There are places where it does, however. If this is the end of the strip, and I'm fencing at the very end, as long as I have a toe hold, literally, I'm still on the strip, including if I lift my foot up. You have to think of this as having an imaginary wall. rising up from the end of the strip, and I'm still on that wall. It's only when I do this off the end that I now have left the strip and my opponent gets a point. That can be very crucial. The women's epee team for the US last year at the World Championships won because this Korean woman went off the strip. The other thing is if I'm here, I'm still on the strip, but if my rear foot goes to the side, I am now off the side of the strip, so to speak. And if that's the case, I lose a meter, which puts me off the end, which means my opponent gets a point. So if you're here in the last bit of the strip, you got to make sure you stay on it, of course. Okay, but if you go off this way, at that point on the strip, you lose a meter and off you go. So let's just recall the rules of the strip. And here's the beautiful illustration once more. If you really want to learn this, if you're not sure, the best way to learn it is, of course, to teach it to somebody else. You could tell your little brother or sister, or your older brother or sister, or your parents, or your grandmother, or your stuffed animals. Finally, I want to say this. There's lots of sword fighting in movies. Nowadays, it's mostly kind of big and muscular, they're whacking each other. But there are some movies where there's really beautiful, classical fencing. And the best example of that is the famous movie Cyrano de Bergerac. If you don't know this story, I hope you will find it and learn it. I used to teach it for years. It's a French play, translated in English. 1950, Jose Ferrer was the actor. He's a Princeton guy, won the Academy Award. I'll just give you a tiny synopsis, and then you can go online and look at the sword fight. So here's Cyrano. He's a very accomplished man. He's a poet, he's a soldier, he's a grammarian, he's eloquent with words, and he loves Roxanne from a distance. But, you knew there was a but, right? He has a really huge nose, and he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed by his big nose. Even though he's a great swordsman, he has all these accomplishments, he's a wit, he's a soldier, as I said, he's a poet, all these things, but he can't get beyond his embarrassment over his nose. And of course, one reason to read this play is because we've all got something like that we have no control over, but we're still ashamed of. In the scene that I'm going to propose to you, this takes place in 1640, like the era of the Musketeers. You can see that beautiful hat I drew. So this minor count insults him and says something very boring. He says, "Your nose is rather large." And Cyrano mocks him and says, "Oh, you could have said so many things that were so much more interesting if you had any letters, any wit, any education, any imagination. But the best you could do was, your nose is rather large." So then Cyrano schools him and all the things he could have said, and the crowd that he's doing this in front of loves it. So they have a big duel scene, as you can see. And Cyrano shows off his wit by making up, improvising on the spot, reciting a very formal poem while he toys with Valvera. He's such a good swordsman, he sort of can make up a poem and defeat him in a duel at the same time. And Cyrano wins, and the crowd loves it. The actors in this movie trained with a man named Ralph Faulkner, who is a huge Hollywood swords guy. He did all those old great black and white movies from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. And he was a trained fencer, and he taught fencing classes. In fact, my wife took one from him in the 70s when he was a very old man. But if you watch this scene from this movie, and I will put a link on the post to your parents, you will see it's very classical, it's very stylized. They clearly practiced it a ton. You'll see 4 counter 4s, 6 counter 6s, and all the rest of it. But it's really a great sword fight scene for the movies. I think probably most of you, when you hear sword fight movies, might think of The Princess Bride. And that's fun too, but it's not the same kind of fencing as this. So I will put that link for your parents. And he's a very famous figure. You'll see him in Sesame Street. There's a bunch of different movies, one of them called Roxanne, that are based on him. So he's quite a well-known character, but I'm afraid he's fallen out of fashion in most schools. So anyway, Cyrano de Bergerac, have a look at it. Okay, that's the end of this video. I hope you have a great week. I hope you practice. See you soon.